Well, hey there. What's up, Brick Fanatics? Hope you're having a good Wednesday today. Hope you're getting through your week. We're halfway done, y'all. And you know what that means? It means it is a Wild Card Wednesday, and I am actually switching it up. If you're a longtime user, you know that I typically do a set review and then some sort of just wonky topic. Well, I'm saving that wonky topic for next week because we got some big stuff coming around the pike, so I thought I would move up and do an additional set review for this Wednesday. So, hey, before I get into that, though, I do always want to say thank you. You know, whether you're catching me on your favorite podcast platform, no matter what platform that is, or maybe you're a visual person and you just like watching on the YouTube page, no matter how you get this episode, I just really appreciate it. And you know, and if you enjoy it, please, as they say, the cool kids say, smash the like button and subscribe and do all those cool things that you can do that help support me, because obviously I'm not really making money on this, but I do love the support and I do love the interaction. If you leave a comment on the YouTube page, I definitely will get back to you. But again, I think I've said enough about that. I want to get right into this set, and today is a good one. And I do this set specifically now because we have a unique point in history. Okay, let me take you back to a personal life lesson in Lego that I learned once upon a time, and it centers around modular buildings. I have said this story on the podcast before, but when I want to say the year was around 2012, the fire brigade, the town hall, the Palace Cinema, and among others were all out on shelves. And I remember having this conversation with my wife, and we were just like, should we go after the modulars? I mean, if we should, now is the time, because we're not going to get this opportunity again, you know, and we decided not to. And lo and behold, like I said, by the end of that year, a lot of those sets had started to retire. And if you want to get those sets on the aftermarket now, plan on paying, you know, your left kidney to get all of those modular buildings. And so here's the deal. We are at, again, a crossroads, albeit a smaller one for sure. But we are what I call a Transformers crossroad here in summer of 2025. And that's why I come to you today, because Soundwave is coming summer 2025. We are getting another big, huge Transformer set in the G1 motif. When I say G1, I mean Generation 1 Transformers. We're talking 1980s awesomeness, okay? So I thought, you know what? Let's review Optimus Prime. And it's like, well, why, Steve? What's the point? Well, here's the deal. Set 10302, this beautiful, beautiful set, which if you are catching me on the YouTube page, I have it next to me in all of its glory. It came out June of 2022. And here's the cool part. It's still on shelves, which means you can still snag this at the retail price, which is $180. But guys, it's been on shelves now for 3 years. Okay, in fact, it'll be on shelves for longer than 3 years, and I don't know if you've been paying attention to Lego lately, but there are a lot of new sets dropping all the time, and so here's the deal. Optimus Prime, he's not long for this world in Lego, okay? So by the end of 2025, chances are the only place you're going to be able to find this guy is going to be on the aftermarket, which means you're going to spend more money. So you got to ask yourself, is now the time? And so I thought I would do this set review. Maybe this helps you sway your decision. And so here's how I'm going to break it down. I am going to tell you a little bit about the set itself. Going to give you a little history behind this set because it's a pretty unique one. And then I always like to end every episode with an overall set rating, which I break down how I rate this set, which is on a number of factors, just to let you know if I think the set is worth it. And so before I get into the history, let me just give you some basic specs. first off, like I said, this came out June 1st, 2022, part of the Icons theme, an iconic adult-centered Lego theme, one of my favorites in the themes out there. It was, like I said, $180, 1,508 pieces. And so if you price per piece this bad boy, it's around 12 cents per piece. So it's definitely not a cheap set by any standards. 10 bags, 5 stickers, so not very many stickers. In fact, one of them is actually for the placard, because there is a placard that comes with it. And there are other smaller stickers for his belt, which also becomes basically the bumper of when he is in truck mode. But there are also a fair number of printed pieces on this set as well. So there's the basic specs, but let's get to the meat of it, okay? Let's talk about the history of this set, because if you're not a Lego aficionado or even a Transformers fan, you may not know that as little as a decade ago, well, heck, as little as 5 years ago, there was no way in history we were going to get this set. There was no way, if you were a betting person, whoever said, oh, we're going to get Lego Transformers, they were probably a psychopath, because we just did not know this was happening. And in fact, it really, when it dropped, basically every Lego Transformers fan out there, our jaws dropped right there along with it, because Transformers weren't always a Lego thing, you know. And to really go back, we do have to go way back, right? Let's start off first with how Lego and Hasbro works. They are both toy companies. Lego, obviously, it's building brick niche, and Hasbro doing its things with action figures. And if you are a Gen Xer or an older millennial, basically if you are a child of the 80s, like I like to claim I'm a Zennial, that Star Wars generation, Zennials hold strong out there. Saturday morning cartoons, man, that was it. That was peak civilization. And there were no greater cartoons being put out than that stuff that was supported by Hasbro. And to me, it was G.I. Joe, it was He-Man, and man, it was Transformers, right? Excuse me. I mean, it was the best, right? It was more than meets the eye. The opening sequence, like you got like Queen singing this stuff. It's crazy. And Hasbro made an entire cartoon Saturday morning just to sell toys, you know, just to sell toys. They ended up making comics. They ended up making a movie for all the G2 line. So if you ever, you know, want to know why it is that we're scarred as Gen Xers and older millennials, just look no further than the cartoons we were watching. Like, anybody out there watch the Transformers movie 1986? And you're thinking to yourself, I love Optimus, it's gonna be great. And then 20 minutes into the movie, he gets blasted and totally dies, right? Like, I don't know about you, but I may have shed a couple tears as a kid. I'm like, he's giving over the matrix of leadership. Oh no, why? You know, and Megatron dies. He gets to come back as Galvatron, but no, Optimus is just gone. It was the craziest thing, like the most 80s thing you could have. Only maybe Artax in the swamp could be worse, in my opinion. But here's the deal. We got that G1, like I said, that Generation 1 1984 Transformers, where you had robots and they were transforming into planes, trains, automobiles, you name it, even guns. Because Megatron, if you don't know this, was originally a handgun, which is totally, again, the most 80s thing ever, because there was no way a toy company would be like, oh, we're going to make a transformable handgun that looks like a World War II pistol. It's just crazy, right? And so anyway, Hasbro did their thing. Lego did their thing. And as we move forward into the 21st century, we get up to the 2011. And Hasbro, trying to basically hone in on Lego's niche, they partner with Kre-O. It's this company out of South Korea. And Kre-O is a building block company. And their first big line is Transformers. So instead of getting Transformers in Lego, we get it in its own original thing, Kre-O. They had Kreons instead of minifigs, and they had Transformers, and then eventually they had G.I. Joe Kre-O sets. They had Star Trek. They had what else? There was Dungeons and Dragons Kre-O, right? And Kre-O itself was actually not a bad brand. You know, I dog on Mega Bloks all the time. Like if you've ever built that, I believe it's a Canadian-owned company, Mega Bloks. If you've ever built something with Mega Bloks, you'll know that the clutch power, which is the strength that holds together two pieces, is janky at best. However, you know, because Lego is that gold standard, right? It has what I always claim is pretty much the perfect clutch power. It fits together, it holds together, but still comes apart with the correct amount of force. Kre-O had much better clutch power than Mega Bloks, and they did pretty good. In fact, their clutch power, I would say, was actually a little tighter than Lego's. And so it was harder to take pieces apart, but made for great displays. And their biggest display they had was Optimus Prime, right? And it looked so good. And in fact, those were the only non-Lego sets I ever owned before buying a couple Pokemon sets later on here only a couple years ago. But it was like I had to have them. I had Megatron, Starscream, Optimus, and they were just great. Absolutely loved them. Sentinel Prime had that guy. And Kre-O was doing a pretty good job. Unfortunately, though, as you fast forward with Kre-O, as we get upwards to 2017, they became more of the dollar store brand Lego. Kind of got a bad name, kind of started hemorrhaging money. You know, you could go to the dollar store and get the blind bags of the Kreons, and the quality just fell off. And because they were hemorrhaging money, Hasbro said no. And that was it. We were done. In fact, we hadn't seen Transformer Legos in quite some time. It had been a good, decade ago, 2015. I don't think we saw any more Transformers. We just thought that was it. So here we go. Fast forward to 2021. Believe it or not, it was Hasbro that approached Lego about this partnership. And it was a partnership to basically create a Lego Transformer. And again, like I said, it kind of dropped out of the middle of nowhere here June 2022, and it was just incredible, And here's what makes it incredible, is that not only do you get a really good build in 1,500 pieces, you get an articulating robot, but you also get a build that can transform without taking the Lego apart. Now that's pretty revolutionary, because you got Voltron, right? Voltron is one of my favorite sets ever. It's a Lego Ideas set. If you don't know Voltron, again, another glorious 1980s beautiful series. Guardian of the Universe, 5 lions that came together to make this incredible robot. But to get the lions to Voltron stage, you actually have to manipulate it quite a little bit to get it to look like its big, glorious robot. And once you turn it into Voltron, I don't think I've actually ever had the lions apart. But what set Optimus apart is you could really transform him from robot into truck without removing a single piece of Lego. And what's more, he transforms like the original G1 Transformer from 1984, which I think is incredible. Like where you have the head that pops down inside the chest area, the arms come back, and you've got the big the smokestacks coming up, the legs fold back to make the base of the actual semi itself. It's just really, really cool. Now, I will say the one glaring omission here, which I don't really think is a big deal, I think it was a good choice on Lego, was there is no trailer bed. The original G1 came with this big, huge trailer bed. Although the set itself is smaller, the actual Transformer is much smaller than the Lego, but it came with a trailer bed. This does not, which again, I think was a good choice. I just think it would have been too much, too many pieces. And for what? A truck trailer? I like this just didn't work. And so, yeah, here we go. We got it. And what makes this really cool is it again, it was weird because it was obviously successful, but again, we didn't hear anything on the success about it. It wasn't until like 2 years later where we get, boom, now we get Bumblebee. And when we got Bumblebee, it was like, okay, this could be a real deal thing. And now here in 2025, we have gotten a couple Brickhead sets. Again, the rehash of Optimus and Bumblebee. And then again, here's Soundwave in August. And so if you want to get your hands on all the Transformers, if you are a completionist, this is your opportunity. This is where you got to grab them, because if you don't, you're going to be out of luck. And let me tell you a little bit more about this set to maybe, liven up the deal a little bit for you and see why is it possibly worth $180. And one is printed pieces. Where else are you going to get, except Bumblebee, are you going to get the Autobot logos printed on your Lego? These are not stickers. So Optimus has 2 giant Autobot logos on his shoulders. He has another Autobot logo on his back, which is part of that big, it's almost like the jetpack part of him. And those are all printed. And in fact, his eyes are printed. That little central part on his forehead is printed. Like I say, the only parts that are actual stickers are the his belt as a robot or the bumper as the truck, as well as the placard down below. But his legs, we've got the other remaining stickers go to the top part of his legs. So, but if that wasn't all, like I say, the other cool part about this is you get the chrome silver, and you can't have a semi without chrome silver. So you get that red, you get that dark blue color scheme, and you get the chrome silver accent pieces that are really, really nice, in addition to your translucent pieces that show off its headlights and whatnot. So overall, just a really cool set. Plus you get accessories. You get his Energon blaster. You also get his Energon axe, which you can take out the hand and replace the hand with the axe like you do in the movies. I'm not a huge fan of that. When I see him with the Energon axe, it reminds me of the Michael Bay movies. And I don't know about you, but like the Transformer movies, the way those Transformers look, much worse than G1. Like, can you imagine Lego trying to do a Michael Bay Megatron? I think that would just look horrific. And so to do G1 is great. But the accessories, like I say, you get a placard, the Energon weapons, as well as a big old piece of Energon brick. Did they have to include the Energon brick or even the axe? No, probably not, but it is a nice little thing. In addition to that, not only does it transforms, but obviously its arms then articulate. His legs move sideways a little bit, just like it did in the character itself, but it's kind of cool. The one downside of the articulating arms, I will say, is his Energon gun. It is a little heavy, and so the piece that would hold his arm up doesn't hold up super well under that weight. It's really impossible to get it straight. But other than that, it's pretty top-notch, y'all. I'm just saying, I just look at it and it's a really cool set. It's about 15 inches tall, about 6 inches wide, about 4 inches deep of just pure 80s nostalgia. And you need to get your hands on it. Like I said, it's a miracle that it exists. Like, I hope that you're hearing me there, is that this set shouldn't exist. And if you're old enough to have collected Lego 15 years ago and saw the Kre-O sets, this is such a major step up from what we had with the Kre-O set. I mean, I enjoyed the Kre-O set. I thought it was pretty top notch at the time, but this absolutely blows it out of the water for sure. So, and as I said, it's been on shelves for 3 years, so it's getting ready to go away for sure. So anyway, I hope you kind of get what I'm throwing down here. And, I understand in advance people are Transformers, like more than meets the eye, like this is something they love, or this is something that had nothing to do with their life. Like when I show my wife Bumblebee at the Lego store, she's like, it's fine. She doesn't really care about it. But for me, like this was Saturday morning at its finest. So I got to get my hands on Bumblebee. And here's the deal. Why I keep saying this, if you don't have Optimus and you see Soundwave and you're like, man, I need to get Soundwave, I would personally hold off on Soundwave and get Optimus instead, because this is the one where your time is running out. So anyway, having said that, I do, again, like I say, like to end off every video by giving you a rating on the set. And to do that, I base it on 4 basic things: playability, displayability, the build experience, and its overall value. So first, let's talk about the playability. This set, it's as playable as your G1, 1984 Optimus Prime. It's just really, really dope. And just the fact that you can not only articulate its arms, where you can have him set up and shooting and doing all those things, that you can replace the hand with the axe and you could battle Soundwave or Bumblebee or whoever, but also just the simple fact that it transforms. And it just doesn't transform by taking apart the bricks and rebuilding into it. This isn't a 3-in-1, y'all. It transforms pieces all together, which that is just absolutely insane. So I would say for playability, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. May not be perfect, but it's gosh darn near close for this 80s kid. Displayability, again, I think this is a solid 9 out of 10. These printed pieces are absolutely on point. They look great. They're centered nicely. And it has all of the flair, and it has all the proportions, and it has all of the build that you would expect from that G1 Optimus Prime. There is nothing I see in this robot that is lacking. I mean, it could be possibly a little bigger or possibly a little smaller, but to me, this proportion is just about perfect, and it looks great on the shelf. I actually have mine next to my Bowser currently, but I do love putting him next to Voltron. He is a little bit smaller, but they just look great together, right? It looks awesome. So he is currently next to Bowser and right underneath the Nintendo. So I think that kind of works too. And then build experience. Build experience is great. Like, it's fun. It's exactly what you would expect. It's 1,508 glorious pieces. The set build goes quick. Obviously, you get a little repetition in the fact that you're building one leg, then another leg, one arm, then another arm, and those type of things. But overall, very diverse, very fun, very colorful. This is not a set that you get bored building. So for build experience, I would give this an 8 out of 10. And then finally, that leaves us with the overall value. At $180, it's a pricey set. 12 cents per piece, but again, that's what happens when you get partnerships with other companies. Everybody has to get their slice of the pie. So this is probably its biggest knock. I would give this a 6.5 out of 10. It could definitely be more nowadays. This kind of thing could be 14 cents per piece, so I wouldn't be surprised if Soundwave at this size were a $200 set. I would hate that, but I wouldn't be surprised. Like I said, when it retires, definitely going to increase in price. It's been on the shelf long enough that it may not increase insane right off the bat. You can bet, though, within 6 months of retiring, you're going to be paying at least $200 for this set. That's just how it works. Now, if you want to find it used, if you didn't care about the box or a manual or anything like that, you could probably, I didn't look lately, but 150, so you could save money there for sure. And so if you're putting all that together and keeping track at home, that leaves you with an 8.1 out of 10 as my final rating, which I think obviously is very solid. I think it is a worthwhile set if you, again, are a child of the 80s, or even, people love the Transformers movies, but it's got a totally different flair. Like, everybody knows Transformers, right? Because there's been 1,800 Michael Bay movies. But this just looks different. It just feels different. And if you're, like I say, a Gen Xer or an older millennial or a Zennial like me, this is pure nostalgia. This is that quintessential 1980s look that I absolutely love. So yes, I think you should go and get it for yourself for sure, and get it before it retires. Complete that set. So anyway, that's my opinion. You tell me in the comments below. If you're watching on the YouTube page, what's your opinion? Are you a Transformers fan like I am? Do you think this set is dope? Do you think it falls short some places? You know, let me know where. I'd love to know. But I can't find too many faults with it. Anyway, with that, like I say, Monday, I'm going to come back to you with some latest news and rumors. Next week, I'm just telling you in advance, we are going hot and heavy with the BrickLink Designer program. So that's why we shifted up a little bit, because we got things that are happening next week, and I want you to be prepared for that. So until then, I guess, until I come back to you on Monday with those news and rumors, and then another crazy wild card Wednesday, because this next Wednesday is going to be a good one. I'll just have to catch you then. All right, have a good one, y'all. Bye-bye.
How it's supposed to feel.